Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode, and in this episode actually we are going to instantiate the player. Alright, so to instantiate the player, well actually we are starting different. First of all, you need to download my project files, the server solution, okay, which if you didn't have it downloaded yet, or if you didn't watch my older networking tutorials, you can download the project files now down below into the description. There you can get the project files, and then you will be able to add now this tutorial. So as I already said, we are going to instantiate the players so you can see other players, and so the instantiation is working correctly. I got many comments on my videos that many people got like packet loss or something like that because the second player isn't instantiating correctly on the Unity client. Well, that is not actually true. You don't have any packet loss in your networking system since we are using TCP. The reason why your players are not instantiating correctly in the Unity client is because we are inheriting from the mono behavior to instantiate game objects into the game basically. Since we are using a different thread, so the system thread, because we have created our own network part, you have actually convert this thread into the Unity thread, so you can actually instantiate the game objects or access the game objects. And the way to do is to do that basically you can do it with a mono behavior driven method like the start, the awake function, the enable function, the update function, the fixed update function. But this is actually not the best way, since when you are getting packages from the network, the way how the update function works is it is basically slower than while you are getting the packets from the network. That's why you think you have packet loss. But instead, what happens is basically that your Unity client is too slow to handle them. And that's why I have implemented a Unity thread helper into this project, which you can find. I will show you in a second. And this now creates a new instance of this update function every time you receive a package, okay? So every package will get executed correctly, and at the same time once it arrives on the client. But enough talk, enough explanation. I would say without further ado, we are starting right away into this project. I have downloaded my own project right now, and we are going to basically open it up, that fresh project. And then I'm going to show you how everything is working then. So basically we are going to start with the server. So open up the server project with Visual Studio or whatever IDE you are using. So what we are doing now is basically we are creating a new package at first. So therefore we are going into our packet.cs, double click, and we are going to create a new actually we are going to create two new packets, okay? So we are creating a new packet called as in-game, comma, and the second one will be as player data, okay? So the first packet basically will send the player itself with his own index into the game. Well, actually not into the game. It just sends the player itself his own index. So you are able to control later on when you are creating movement and stuff, that you only control your own player and not everyone's other game object players and whatsoever. And the player data basically will instantiate your player as well also the all the other players in the game. Okay. So as next, we are going into our, let's say, server TCP, and we are going to create a new method in our send packages region. So what we are basically going to do is we want to send at first the player index to the player itself. So therefore we are going to say public static void send in-game. We do need, of course, a parameter of int connection ID. And then we are creating the packet itself. So basically always the same. It is, excuse me, my microphone. There you go. So basically it is byte buffer equals new byte buffer. And then we are writing the packet identifier. So we are saying buffer.writeLong and long, and then we say server packets as in-game to send the player his own index, and we want, of course, to send the player's index to the player itself. Therefore we are going to say buffer.writeInteger connection ID, connection ID, and that's it. No more information is needed. Then we can say send data to connection ID and buffer.toArray. Awesome. And then don't forget buffer.dispose to make space in your system. Okay. As next we want to send the player data. So we are going to create a new, let's say, we are going to create a new static function, which will be basically a public static, not a static void, it will be a function which will be a public static byte array. And we call this player data. And of course we do need int connection ID as parameter. So what we are going to do here is basically we are creating a byte array within a byte array with the player's information such as name, position and whatsoever. So therefore we are going to create again a new byte buffer. Call this buffer, new byte buffer, and then we say buffer write long, the packet identifier which will be long, server packets dot as player data. And now you will be able to put in every information you want. The most necessary information is of course the index. So we say buffer.writeInteger connection ID because we want to know which player's information is this actually, okay? If we don't send the connection ID, then the client does not know, okay, which player actually is that? Which information is that? I don't know where to put this information to which player. So that's why we are sending the connection ID as well. And then we can send stuff like player name, health, and I don't know, whatever information you want to put in as a player data. And then we can say basically return buffer.toArray. Okay, but now we do not send this information directly within the byte array. Therefore we are going to create a new method. I always call this method sendJoinMap because I mostly work on 2D MMORPGs and therefore I'm going to put this player into the map. We are going to call this method now public static void send in world. This is a great, yeah, that's a great idea. Send in world, and we do need again a parameter of int connection ID. All right. Okay, so what happens here now in connection ID basically is pretty simple. First of all, when the player is getting launched into the new scene, into the world, we want, of course, to get all the information of the current online players, okay? We want to get every single online player. Another example, okay. You are joining a world, but before you join the world, you want to get all the information, okay? So that's why we are at first sending everyone who is online in the world to yourself. So that's why we are saying we are creating a comment, and we say send all players on the current scene, in example, to the player itself. Therefore, we are going to say for, so we have to loop through every single player. So we are going to say for int 0. Yeah, if you wonder why I have created the for loop that fast, so if you're typing for and you hit the double tap, then it will create a for loop for itself. And then we just have to change the length, and the length will be constants.maxPlayers, because we are looping through every player and we are checking if the player is actually online. And if so, then he will get the information, or you will get the information, we rather say. So then we can say we have to make a check. So if I, okay, not equals the connection ID, because we don't want to send yourself. We just want to see everyone else, and then we are sending. It is tricky. Okay, so first of all, what we are going to do before we instantiating ourselves, we want to receive ourselves. So that's why we are checking if the index we are looping through is not ourselves. So we are getting everyone on the map, and if so, we can say. Send data to index, not index, connection ID it is. And then we can say player data I think player data, it's not an array, it's a method. There you go. Okay, with this little line of code, we are sending everyone on the map to yourself. But now we want to instantiate ourselves on our client, of course, to see ourselves on the client. But also we want to make sure that everyone on the map who is currently online will see you as well. That's why we need to create a new send method, which basically loops through everything. And then basically sends it over the network, if you know what I mean. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a new method, which is called static void send data to all. And we only need a parameter of a byte array with our data. So what happens here now is basically we are creating a new for loop, typing for, double tap, change the length to constants.maxPlayers, and then we are checking. So if client I, so we are checking if the client is even online, else it does not make sense to send data. So if client socket not equals null, okay, then we can say send data to our I, and we sending our data array. Okay, so back to our send in world method. So what we are going to do here is we are creating a line which basically sends the connection ID player data to everyone on the map, on the scene, let's say like this, on the scene, including himself. Okay, so we are sending our data to everyone else, including ourselves. So we are instantiating right when we are instantiating on everyone else. Then we can say send data to all, and then just let's say player data, what is it, player data, oops, of course our connection ID. And that is basically how you send or instantiate on everyone else's client, and how you instantiate to yourself. But we are not quite done yet, okay? So of course we need to test it on the Unity client, okay? So therefore we are going to open up our Unity project, our KMake Games client, which I need to open with Unity, of course. So let's see, open, and then desktop. Oh god, I got so much. There you go. And then I open that up. Yeah. I think I got everything. Okay, so we have the project. We are going into our KMake Games folder, into our scripts. And the first thing we do, okay, we are adding the package which we have created on our server. And we are going to create on the client as well. So open up the packet script. As you can see, it's nothing in there. So we are going into our server, go into packets, and we just then copy these two, and then we should be good. Okay. As next, we do need, of course, to listen in the handle data to our packets. So what happens here now basically is, let's see, packets. We are going to minimize that. Okay. So what happens here now is we are going on top. We are going to create a public game object player pref, which we already did. Then on the very bottom, we are creating our handle data for our packet. So we are going to say static void packet, let's say first of all in-game. Okay, we are sending an in-game packet. Therefore we are reading it out. So we can basically just copy and paste everything of the welcome message. Oops, copy it in the right section. There you go, delete everything of that, and then we are good to go. So we have our own index. What we are going to create now is we are going to create a new script. Like new class, new mono behavior. No, we are just going to create a new class, and we call this class globals. Because this globals class will handle our, can remove the namespace. We are making it a public class, a public static class. And we are going to create a public static int, and we call this my connection ID. Okay, so we know our connection ID. Then we can say in our packet in-game, and we can say globals.my is equal to the connection ID we are getting from the packet in-game. Okay. There you go. It's not a method, no. Okay. Now we are going to basically instantiate all of our peoples. Okay, so we are creating a new static void for our packet player data. We do need a byte array of data. And there you go. Okay, so first of all, we do need to read out. So therefore, we have to check what we are basically sending. So back in our server TCP, we are checking our player data. So we are sending, of course, the packet identifier and the connection ID of the player. So when we are going into our client again, we can just copy and paste everything in the packet in-game besides globals my connection ID and pass it into our packet player data. So the packet player data basically now is getting all the information from everyone's player, and now we can create a temporary game object. So we can basically say we are going to create game object temp is equal to our player pref. Is it a player pref? Public game object player pref. Public, it's static. How can we do that? How can we do that? We could say, can we do it like this? Player pref. Okay, in the awake function, we are going to create we are going to create a private static player pref underscore game object player pref underscore, and then we can say player pref underscore is equal to player pref. No, that's not working. Player pref. There you go. That is working. Okay, perfect. And now we can basically create our temporary game object, which is then our player pref underscore. And now we can set up the player itself. So we can say temp.name is equal to let's say player double point plus his connection ID. So we know which player it is actually is. So plus connection ID. Okay, so we should get player 1, player 0, player 2, and whatsoever. And then we can say, what we can say instantiate our temp. That's it. And now we should be able to instantiate the player correctly. Actually, we need, first of all, before we can test that, we need to initialize our packets. I always forget that when I'm working on my private projects. So, and don't worry when you forget that as well. That happens. So we copy this 2 times, and we are going to change it to as in-game, and then we say packet, where is it, in-game, and then we say as player data, and then we say packet player data. Okay, now we just need to prepare our game object on the inspector. So save the script, and then we are going into our inspector, wait till everything is compiled, which should be pretty fast. Yeah, there you go. And then in our network manager, we do have the client handle data script, of course, which I already attached for you guys. Our player pref, we are going to create a player pref. So I always use for tutorial purposes, I'm using a cube. So we have a cube. I drag and drop this cube into my asset, so it is a prefab. Actually, we are going to move up the cube a little bit, so it will fall down. So we know, okay, the player is instantiated, so it falls down. We actually moved it a little bit around. There you go. Okay, hit apply. Remove the cube from the inspector, go into network manager, drag and drop the cube into the player pref, and now we are creating a floor so the cube does not fall down forever. So right click plane, and then the cube again, we want to have a rigid body, so he will fall down to the floor. Okay, great. Now we should be able to test everything we just have created. So back in our server, first of all, we want when the player connects to the server that he will get instantiated directly. Okay, we just want to force it right now. So back into the server TCP, we are going to up to our on client connect message, where we are sending our send welcome message, which we are going to remove. Well, actually, what we can do, basically, we are going to create another method. Okay, we are going to create another method within our general script, which initialize our server. We are going to create a new public static method, and we call this join game. Okay, within our join game method, we do want to send the index, so we say server TCP dot send in game to our connection ID. Okay, so we do need a parameter of join game int connection ID. As next, we want to instantiate a player. So we say server TCP dot send in world with our connection ID. Awesome. And now we can just call join game right here in our on-client connect method. So we are removing send welcome message and we say general.join game with our connection ID, which is I. And now we should be able to see a result already. So we are hitting start on the server. Okay. Hitting start, wait till it is started. Yeah, I allow the server, blah, blah, blah. And now we are hitting play on our Unity client to actually see if we are getting instantiated. So when I hit play, what happens right now is basically boom. So much player are getting instantiated. I actually, what? What? Okay, there must be a mistake on the server. We have join game. Oh yeah, we are sending everyone, every player to the player itself. But we actually want to make sure if the player is actually online, okay? As we are sending just directly 100 player into the game. Oh, major mistake. Okay, so we are checking first of all another if statement right here. So if let's say client I dot socket not equals null, okay, then we are sending everything into the game right there. Okay, start the server again. That looks actually quite funny. We are hitting start, hitting play, and what happens? Boom, 2 players are getting instantiated, which is actually a problem. Why we are getting 2 players if we only have 1 connected, right? So let's see. Yeah, we are getting connected. So what is the problem right there? So we are sending our player to ourselves twice. But we are checking here if our player not equals our connection ID. Then we are sending the data to the connection ID. Huh. This is pretty strange. Okay, we need to do some debug right there. So close the client, open it up again. So what happens on the server? So we are sending player data connection ID to everyone. Which is okay. Was it a bug? Let's see again. Huh? Huh. That was quite strange. That was really strange. Well, it works now with the server reset. Okay. So as you see, our player is getting instantiated. But now we want to see all 2 players on both clients. So therefore, we are going to build. First of all, I know what happened. So we are going into our build settings. We are going into our player settings. No, we do have that. Okay, perfect. So always make sure running background is checked, else you run in a lot of trouble. And now we are hitting build and run, basically the game. So we are building and running. To see what happens here. everything is working correctly. It always takes so long. Unity, why? Okay, we are scaling down to 800 by 600 and we hit play. Okay, what happens now? So we are getting instantiated right here. And now what I want to see, basically I will open up another client right there. What I want to see is that the second client gets instantiated. Boom, there you go. We have 2 clients here, 2 clients there. And what should I moved it into my second screen right now? And now when we are going into our Unity client and should instantiate, we should have 3 players on everyone's client. Okay, so hit play. And boom, everyone got 3 players. 3 players here, 3 players here. And as you can see in the inspector, because all the cubes fell down, we have 1, 2, 3 players. Awesome, isn't it? And that's the way how to instantiate players on everyone's client correctly. I hope you did like this short lesson. I hope you love this feature on creating mini episodes, on doing stuff. And if you do have a request which you want to know, like many people requested this tutorial, the next one could be, let's say, movement or whatsoever, network movement. Just let me know, write down into the comments what you want to see in the next episode, and then basically I will create it for you. Thank you for watching, guys. Also, don't forget you can join my Discord server. The link will be down below into the description. You also can support me on Patreon, which you can check out into the description as well. And you guys can check out my homepage and download the server project to implement actually this little tutorial for yourself. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you in the next episode and bye.